Hey everyone, Jim with Evolution Power Sports here today with our 2024 Can-Am Maverick R. We risked life and limb to get this last night. Came into our dealer down in Oklahoma, and one of our customers, Michael Reed, went and picked it up. I met him halfway. We met at midnight, drove all through the night to come back just so that we could bring you the lowdown of this awesome new car today. So with that, I want to do a walk around of the vehicle. There's a couple of things that people, I'm sure, are curious about. One is the turbocharger. Okay, so BRP said it's a 54 millimeter turbo. For those who may not know, there's a couple ways to measure a turbocharger. One is the exducer, which is the large part of the compressor wheel that's actually inside the compressor cover. The other method is the inducer, which is the part where basically the fins of the turbo are protruding out into the compressor cover that you can actually measure. Okay, and my suspicion was that that when BRP said that it's a 54 millimeter exducer. I was correct about that. We have measured the compressor. It's about 41 millimeters on the inducer. Maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. It's on an angle, and we had to use like an external caliper to get in there with a camera to make sure we're in the right spot. But it's somewhere in that range between 41, 42 millimeters on the inducer. And that's the proper way, in my opinion, to measure is the inducer, because that's your limitation of how much air you can get through the engine, is the size of that hole. So, but still great. I mean, that's 4 or 5 millimeters larger than the previous generation X3. And with all of the improvements they made to the engine, we're quite confident that this is going to make big power even in stock form. All right, so the first thing we want to talk about is the outrageous suspension, and I mean outrageous in a good way. This is totally out of the box thinking for suspension design. I think the Millers did a great job explaining it. Dustin Jones did a great job demoing how good it is. Kyle Cheney told me how good it is. So we're confident that regardless of how it looks, it's going to function great. We are going to do a test ride a little bit later today on our test track, just to kind of get our own feel for it and see what we think about it. But you can't miss the front suspension and the rear suspension for that matter. The rest of the car, obviously way updated from the original Maverick X3. More substantial car, definitely wider, barely fit on the trailer. I believe it's full 77 inches wide, which is going to be great for the dunes. It's going to be great for the desert. It's going to be tough on narrower trails, but this is really designed to be like a dune car / desert car, and I think it's going to excel in that regard. Jumping into the car, seating position is pretty similar to before, but definitely better vision over the hood, which is going to make a big deal when you're out in the dunes. That's one of the problems the original X3 had. You had to have a little bit of faith as you're cresting a dune, because you can't see over the top. I think the visibility is significantly better with this car. But once you come into the cockpit here, that's where really everything has changed. Obviously, it is a DCT transmission, so no more belt. Beautiful display. I'm glad BRP finally did a nice display, and it has navigation and everything else. Shifter is pretty cool. You hold it, to put it in gear, you pull it back to drive. There's a number of ways you can get into different gears. You could use the buttons here, you can use the shifter, you can also use the paddles, for the paddle shifter. So you can either drive it in automatic or in manual mode. So it's going to open up a whole new envelope, for racers or for people that want to be a little bit more active when they're driving. Next thing we'll talk about is the different drive modes. So there's 3 different drive modes. You have your Sport, you have your Sport Plus, and then your, I guess your normal mode, or I don't think it's called Eco mode anymore. But we haven't really driven the car yet, so we're going to do that right after we get done with this walk around video, do some draggy times, and see how fast it is in stock form. Coming around to the driver's side, the engine transmission package, you can see with the light, we did pull the airbox off so we could get at the turbocharger a little bit better. Obviously the engine is mounted on a different orientation. You know, it's oriented front back or longitudinally to make room for the transmission. Puts the turbocharger on this side of here instead of in the front the way it was before. But a couple of cool features that I do want to draw your attention to. So the intercooler itself is massive, okay? And this was, you know, a problem with the original X3s was that, you know, not a lot of intercooling capability given the power levels that, you know, we were achieving with, you know, tuned cars or big turbo cars. But another great feature is, besides being, you know, massive, it has aluminum end tanks, which means that, you know, it's not going to be prone to, or it shouldn't be prone to, you know, having problems with the end tanks coming off under high boost the way some of the original or the older 900 ACE motors were. You know, huge exhaust. You know, massive heat shielding all the way around it. Looks really good. You know, can't wait to get our own exhaust. We have one down in Phoenix that we're working on. Another thing is we have transmission cooler back here as well. So that's obviously new for the gear, you know, for the DCT transmission. Coming over to the bed, sure a lot of people have seen this, but I think a much more useful bed. You know, it's solid, it's got the link, you know, tabs already in there, so it should be pretty good for accessories. Coming over to the passenger side, has silicone charge tubes from the factory, okay, which is, you know, kind of a nice thing. Silicone rubber is much stronger than the typical, you know, water radiator hose rubber that they used before. You know, we're obviously going to add a blow-off valve to this, so we'll have our own silicone for it. Maybe a few different colors for people that want to jazz up their ride. Plenum, intake plenum is plastic, but it does look significantly more gusseted than the previous model, so hopefully that'll be good for, you know, some big boosts before it needs to be upgraded. One other really cool feature that I want to talk about is the fact that this vehicle has 6 fuel injectors, you know, fuel rails up behind the plenum up here. And what that means is that we have like double the amount of fuel that we had on the previous vehicle with, you know, stock injectors. So great feature, and we look forward to, you know, doing E85 tunes even with the stock injectors. So all in all, we're super happy with the changes that BRP made to this vehicle. Really very cool things. But at Evolution Power Sports, we're always looking to make the vehicles the best they can be and performing to the highest level. So stay tuned for those upgrades that we have coming soon.